Good, guys. Now let's go to discussion of our interview questions, and I suggest that we will now turn on our videos and we will discuss the questions. And our first question, it was shared with one of our students from the previous batch, and it was the company who was interviewing for a paid position, internship position. What devices, guys, did you use for testing, and how did you set them up?
Galina, I can try.
Oh, go ahead.
So actually, during the last several projects, like me personally, we're using, except like the usual computers with the Windows Mac, it was 2 devices with Android and probably 6 iPhones, and we mostly were using the ADB commands with the Android and the Android Studio. I was using it on Mac OS, and there was a simulator for Android APK files, and for iOS there was emulator, and actually there was another device like iPower Mirror program that was actually mirrors both iPhone and Android physical devices. So technically, managing the devices mostly with the Android, as I said, with the ADB commands and the terminal with the bash dash, and with the iOS it was mostly from Xcode and also the terminal commands, something like this.
Okay, so you are saying that most of the time you were working with testing mobile applications, and for that purpose you were using those devices, right?
Definitely.
Okay, good. Maybe you guys can tell me how did you perform web testing and what devices were you using?
We use devices only for mobile testing, Galina, for emulators and simulators. And were used on, they were all installed on our laptops or computers. So there were no separate devices that I didn't use any other device other than my physical mobile device for testing.
Okay, but aren't your personal computers, desktop, laptops, and tablets are not the devices?
Yeah, so we did set them up by installing software for automation like Selenium, and by using other software like Jira or Confluence for helping with testing. And what else did we use? Yeah, that's all I can think of right now.
Okay, that's good.
Galina, I can add one stuff.
Absolutely, go ahead.
We actually also using the device farms, if I'm not mistaken, the Samsung device farms. But it's really, even though there's a lot of devices, because they're pretty much the Samsung really expensive devices, and people say that we used to test them because we don't need to buy them. But technically, while I was renting some of them just to make sure if the virtual tests run the same way as the physical one, they don't really do. I mean, they don't really run. So it's a kind of fake. I mean, for the last 3 years, I mean, serious company doesn't really use Samsung farms. So usually people do the Amazon. I mean, AWS.
AWS.
Yeah,
Okay.
AWS. It's more convenient, and it's really. I mean, especially for iOS devices, it also works perfectly. So I mean, I see a lot of good reviews for AWS, and with their prices, they are also good, and the time. I mean, the delays, because you know it's like they give you like, I don't know, if I'm not mistaken, 20-30 minutes for every session with this or that device, because it's not like one device. You should test like, I don't know, like 30-40 whatever. So
Okay.
good option.
Very good. Guys, this is a very good example how you should deliver, right? You definitely need to demonstrate that you really have experience, that you had some learning experience from using that or that, and make it interesting for the interviewer so that you can develop your conversation. You will get additional questions and you will be able to continue. So this is a good start. And what will you say about still Windows devices? What is the minimum when you are working with web applications?
Different browsers.
Right. Testing should be done on Windows, right? Desktop, on laptop, so that you can see the functionality on the latest Windows releases, right? And it is 10, no later probably than 7, right? And 11 is already available, right? So you definitely need to test them all, and you have to set them up, and you need to download the browsers, the software that you need, so that you can cover all the possible opportunities. And of course, when you are speaking about the desktop devices, you definitely have to cover Apple MacBooks, right? This is the must, because they also have Safari browser, something that is not available on Windows machines. You definitely can use the virtual machines, right? And some of the companies, they provide this opportunity. They have the Sparkle virtual machines, and you can use them through remote control. So, but not only virtual, but the physical devices is also should be available. And you probably will separate your functions. If you are not the only tester, right? You will do the testing on different devices, right? And you will do the usual testing for content, for functionality, for compatibility. So this is how you set up your environment, making sure that every possible operating system will be covered. Good. The next question is, describe your release process and how often do you have releases?
Can I try, Galina?
Sure, go ahead, Julia.
So I have release every 2 weeks, and before release, I do regression testing to make sure everything is working as supposed to work. Release starting usually after working hours. In my company, it's usually at 6 p.m. Product owner is in charge for release, and usually I prepared all my release notes, which I include in all my summary of changes, my bugs, build number, valid credentials, environment, all necessary credentials what I needed. So 15 minutes before release started, developer deployed the changes to the staging environment. And when release starting, product owner he is go through user stories and make sure that all features working as intended. If something is going wrong, so product owner and developers started to investigate what the problem is, and if it doesn't.
Let me interrupt you. You are saying that the DevOps is deploying it to staging. Is it true?
Developers, I said.
Developers for staging.
Yeah.
Is it the release?
Yeah. I was asking my husband, and I watching how he doing release.
And it is done in staging?
Yeah, in staging environment. And then if a release is working as it's supposed to work, they push that to production.
Okay. This is interesting.
May I ask?
Because in my company it was done differently. So we definitely were testing it in staging, but not necessarily 15 minutes before the release.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the release can be done on a certain date, on a certain time, and the entire team that is participating, right? Not only the product owner. And if it is the bigger company, right, there will be the release manager, right, or release engineer who is responsible, and their development team representative will be there, and all the QA team, right, and they will be participating in this release. And when it will be deployed to production, then we definitely have all our checklists, and we use our test environment, right? Test accounts on production, and then we are doing the same thing. Go ahead, please.
So, as I say, if something going wrong at that moment, so the developers looking for the problem, and then they're starting to investigate what's going on, and they're asking me how I tested, how was my testing, and if usually it's everything is going fine. But if something is really going bad, so they put aside the story and they started to investigate for the next day.
Okay, and they roll back, right? This is the terminology, specific terminology. They roll back to the previous build, right?
Yes.
That was previously deployed, right? And then they do this investigation, and probably when they fix this issue, right, then there will be another release, right, which will be unscheduled, right? It will be a specific patch, maybe, that will have place. Very good. Excellent. The only thing that I kind of confused, that you are saying that there will be another spot check on the staging environment, right? 15 minutes before the due time?
Yeah, they're doing like 15 minutes before before release, they deploy changes to staging environment.
Because, I mean, during those 2 weeks and on the, not necessarily, what happens if it is not working on staging?
In his case, I can say that usually it's worked well.
Okay, it means that they were doing their job very good, very well during the testing period, right? So it's just another check before this. I understand. But in my experience, even we tested and retested something that happened during the release, and it 3 or 4 times in my experience, we had to roll back.
So what you recommended me to say in my case for the interview, how can I perform so I said, I don't need to say that we deployed changes to the staging. What should I say? That we are...
So that you were testing this before the release to production. You thoroughly tested it on QA, right? During those 2 weeks period when you... when the developers were working on the new features and bug fixes, and you tested and retested, and you found maybe some other defects that were fixed, and you monitored the status of all the tickets that you filed, right? And so before the release date, you definitely had everything in place. Your reports, right? Your certifications that everything is working as expected. So the number of tests passed, the number of critical bug fixed, right? So you provided all your reports and got the approvals. This is how it worked in my case. So every release should have all the approvals. And then you start, when the DevOps deploy, right, you wait until the signal, because in many cases, right, it is not the complete shutdown of the server. They do it in stages, in certain phases. So the application is working and you wait for the signal to start testing. And you have very short time frame for doing that, maybe 30 or 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. And you do smoke tests, you do new features testing, and you check the bug fixes according to the release notes, right? Mm-hmm. And follow your checklists. And once you see that everything is working fine, you send the message in Slack, and all the participants of this release, they are included into the Slack channel, and they communicate. And you look for the signals in the Slack channel. So you certify that everything is working fine, and this is enough. Just this message in Slack is enough from you as certification. Mm-hmm. And that's it.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me, Galina. May I ask Julia one or more questions?
Sure.
Julia, you said that you were making the releases like once for 2 weeks, or maybe it looks like even oftener. So how
every two weeks.
Every 2 weeks. So how many builds do you have for each release, and how many of them failed?
It may be multiple.
How many testers?
Every new push to the version control system will automatically get the new build version number. And it may be 10, 15, who knows?
Every push makes a build, right?
Every push makes a build.
Jeez.
And you don't have to worry about that, because this build will have the ID automatically assigned by this version control system, right? And it is long alphanumeric string that you need to see, right, in the application. It is, in my case, it was indicated in the console. In our case, it is indicated in the lower corner, right, of our application. It is obvious. So your developers will let you know where to look for this build version number. And then you do the check against the latest build version. Okay, any more questions? Excellent. And the next, and again, guys, if you don't feel comfortable saying that you have the release every 2 weeks, you may say that you have the sprints period for 2 weeks, but you had some schedule of the releases that may be not that often, and it was in my case, right? We had 2 week sprints where we had to report about the work, right? And we discussed what has been done during this 2 weeks period. But we had our release scheduled probably once a month or once a couple of months, not that often. Okay, list your favorite Unix Linux commands.
LS.
Okay, good. What do you get with this command?
List of files.
List of files in the directory, right?
Yeah, and there should be some slash, /a/s/ a lot of other, syntaxes.
It is not slash, it is hyphen and open. And my favorite is ls -l, which shows me the list of files in the directory in the long format, right?
Long format, right.
It is the name of the file with the extension of the file and the what is ownership, right? So permissions, so everything is shown. Good. What else? Any other commands?
Grep.
Grep. Yeah.
What does grep do?
It returns the lines with pattern.
Right.
It's easy to find some kind of log. If you are searching for errors, it will return the errors, all the lines that has errors in it.
So the command for that will be grep. Then you put the pattern. That's what you to search for.
And the name of the file.
Good. What else?
I like disk usage. Right now it's really important for me because it shows what's the real amount of folders, especially in my Mac OS.
And what's the command for that?
Huh?
What is the command?
DU. It's like disk usage, and it's some hyphens, as you said. You can put the folders and sort them. You can say hyphen sort and sort them from ascending, descending, or whatever folders are big or less.
Right. Okay. What is another important that we often use? Change directory, right? We definitely change directory, navigate from one directory to another, and then we can see the contents of this directory by ls. This is most important. What else?
Make dir, cat, whatever.
Make dir, removing, cat. What does cat do?
Cat.
Create file, concatenate, overwrite, appending file.
Okay, but it is not enough. You definitely need to get the command and demonstrate that you know how to use it, right? So guys, please review so that you will be prepared to answer those questions. Okay, for example, if I want to copy the file, I will use command cp, then the file name and the new file name, right? Or if I want to see the content of the file, then I will use command cat, right? And then the file name, and it will show it me in the terminal, right? Okay, so please...
Also head and tail commands.
Head and tail. And by default, it will show me how many lines.
10 lines.
And if I put the number of lines, right, then it will show me bigger or less. Good.
Excuse me, Galina, when we say about commands in terminal, do we talk about dash, bash, because sometimes they really differs depending on the, like your terminal version?
We are speaking about the Linux commands, right? So in Windows, it will be working in bash. And in Mac, it will be working in just the terminal, because it is using the Unix structure, Unix operating system. It is based on Unix operating system.
I mean, when you not put the environment variables, it's not always working even in the Mac. So you should, declare all this stuff in the variables, because sometimes it says there's no dash, and you should input all this stuff.
Okay, and you always can use the one more important command, manual, right? 3 letters, MAN, right? And then you specify what you are looking for, which command you are looking for, and it will give you the list of all possible commands and options related with this. So it is also my favorite. And I can select the proper option from that. Okay, that's enough for this. And the next question, can you give an example of low priority and high priority tickets?
Do we need to provide in our project or just any?
Can I?
Just an example.
Okay, low priority. It's low priority. It can be anything like
some things related with graphic user interface, if something, maybe some misspelled words that's not important for the representation of the company, of the product, it will be lowest priority.
And in our application, you can show me there.
In our application, it's misspelled messages or missed spaces between words and the message that appears on the screen.
Right. Good. And what about the high priority?
High priority, it will be when it's directly affecting the functionality of the application. When something is crashing or something is not working as it's supposed to work.
Right.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
So, Camille, what if we will try to use our application on Linux and it will crash? It will be high priority or high severity?
Our application is supposed to work only what do you mean the application? We have a web application. It's supposed to work in a web browser.
If we launch it in the Linux browser and it crashed.
It's not supposed to be working on a Linux browser. It's not. It wasn't developed for this, as I know.
So you mean if we open in the Mozilla or Google Chrome on the Linux, it will not work?
My responsibilities wasn't to work with on a Linux machines with Linux. I worked with Windows and iOS, so we didn't run it on Linux.
Is it possible to open the browser in Linux machine?
Easy.
I have never worked like that. We usually use Linux for communicating with the backend, right?
Actually, it's the same like in Mac. There's nothing different. The same Mac, let's say.
So you install the browsers, right? And run them? What do you mean? Linux, what flavor of Linux?
You mean like version?
There are some different Linux versions, like Fedora.
Yeah, like Ubuntu, Mint, or whatever.
Right. So you download the browsers there and run them?
Technically, you can do it virtual machine on the Windows or Mac and use the virtual, like Oracle virtual machine and do this Windows. But as I was thinking, like the question is, what is the low priority and high priority? I was thinking like, if we don't really use Linux, it would be a low priority but high severity. Because application...
Misha, if I can answer your question, it depends on the application. You know, if the application is supposed to be compatible, depends on the requirements. If your application is supposed to be compatible with the Linux browser, and if it doesn't work with the Linux browser, then it is a high priority. But that all depends on the requirements of the application.
And by the way, we have a next question there. How do you know, right? Where is this question? 1 second. Which browser to use for testing and which operating system to use for testing?
I think we have all this as sorry.
Stay again.
Anna, go ahead.
Sorry, I think we can know about which browser we use from the test plan which we created together.
Right. This operating systems and this browser should be clearly identified somewhere. So, and this decision, right, is made on some specific resources. And Google Analytics, right? Or there is another statscounter.com site, right, which displays the most popular operating systems. And this is the dynamic information, right, based on the area, right, the location, the industry. And you definitely make your decision based on the statistics. And this decision is made by your management. And in my case, it was recommended and distributed among the company regularly. Once a quarter, we received this updated list of operating systems and browsers that were recommended as required for testing and optional for testing. And we usually started with the ones that's required. And if we had time, then we will switch to the optional. And they will include the operating systems. Of course, Windows, Mac will be like a must, right? And it will indicate Windows 10, Mac version as well, and the browser version as well. And I would, guys, recommend you to create a list of the most recent browser versions, right? So I remember that some of the companies were asking which browser versions you were using. So currently it is Chrome browser 96, right? So same for other important browsers, Edge, right? Firefox and Safari. You create the list of the most recent ones, right? And the preceding ones as well. So that you know, so that you can operate the numbers. All right, now what else? Let's speak about the software as a service. What is this? Is our application a software as a service?
Yes.
Okay. Can you define and describe what is this, and maybe speak about the advantages of those applications?
I will try. So in my opinion, it means that you don't need to download any software. Everything is on the cloud. So on the web, you can access it through the web browser. Mm-hmm. And you don't need to download anything. You don't need to keep your space on your server will not be taken. It will be all stored on a remote server. It's usually paid subscription. So this is the main advantages.
Okay, good. And it can be accessible, right, from
any device.
Right, and through the internet browser, right? It doesn't matter which operating system you are using.
Exactly.
Just the desktop computer, laptop computer, or tablet. So, good. What else? What are other advantages of software as a service application?
So it's easy to maintain. We don't need to install this or update.
All right.
Automatically updates.
Good. Updates. Very good. It is not automatically update, right? But you don't have to worry about this. Everything will be done centrally. Because you are buying their paid services. Okay, and what else? What about the hardware? Previously, right, you had to buy certain computers, right, certain for working as servers, right, and you had to maintain those machines, right? Now you just don't need them, because the servers will be in the cloud. And you definitely can scale your business, right? You can hire more employees, and you will just increase your billing plan. So it will be easy. Otherwise, you will have to buy more hardware, right? Expanding some space in your office for keeping all those hardware. Then the backups. So again, in the cloud, the backups are done centralized, and you don't have to worry about the safety of your data. What else? This is probably enough, right? And our application, right, is definitely an example of a software as a service. Any more questions, additions, guys? All right. What about Selenium? How does it work? I can share with you the picture that we had.
When you say about Selenium, do you mean WebDriver or you mean exactly Selenium?
WebDriver, of course. We didn't touch IDE or other parts, right? We were working only with the WebDriver. You can use this illustration as an example.
You can try.
The most important components of this, Nina?
Important components. So Selenium is framework for test automation.
Mm-hmm.
And it consists of two main parts. So it's client side, which is represented by Selenium libraries,
Mm-hmm.
and server sides that are represented by browser driver and real driver.
Good.
And JSON wire protocol is meant for interaction between them. So Selenium sends HTTP request to the browser,
Mm-hmm.
and browser interacts with to browser driver, and browser driver interacts with real browser.
Good. This
So,
is mm-hmm.
It's this is implemented, JSON wire protocol implemented like it acts like API between
Sending
Selenium.
requests right through
Yes.
from Selenium right through this browser driver to the real browser.
Mhm.
Okay, so we write the script. It is transferred to the respective browser driver and then to the real browser driver through this JSON wire protocol. Very good, Nina. Thank you. And what is the next question? Difference between UI and API testing.
Again, I can try.
Okay.
So API testing. So first, probably main difference is user interface is meant for interaction between human and software, and API is meant for interaction between two pieces of software. So our user interface, it's actually API is backend, and user interface is front end.
Right. So with UI, what are we focused on?
With UI, we focused on user experience.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly, and user interface they are different in speed of our performance. So user interface testing usually takes much more times. I mean, when we perform it already. And API testing is very fast when we already implemented it, or we make automated API testing. Also, user interface testing is more expensive usually than to perform API testing. What else?
What do we test with API testing?
And user interface
communication between the backend, two applications, right? Back-end testing, right?
Yes.
What can we test with this?
We can test, first of all, we can do functional testing, we can do performance testing, which can be impossible.
And speaking about the functional testing, can we do functional testing? We can check the core functionality only, right?
Yes.
We won't be able to test the error messages, proper error messages that will be displayed on the UI, right? It will be just business rules, right? And core functionality only. And with UI testing, we will do, as you said, user experience, functionality, and error messages.
And one more area of using API testing is probably security testing.
Absolutely, right. Good. I think we disclosed the answer to this question. So I think it will be enough if you put forward everything that we heard, guys. Okay, an example of situation when you struggled to reproduce the bug, and what were your actions?
I have an idea. Maybe it could be something that we received from the customer support team. That some customer reported the bug, and they got the description of the bug, but somehow, according to the description, it was impossible to reproduce the bug. So what have been done? We contacted through the customer service the customer and asked them if it's possible to share the screen with us through the Zoom and reproduce the bug and try to understand where the bug was.
Okay, that's good. So you definitely will ask for all possible attachments, right? It can be the screenshot to reproduce it, or maybe video recording also. And definitely this is all you need, and you will make sure to do all the possible communication, right? So that this issue will be resolved. If it is in case with the customer support, then you definitely will be having this interaction with customer support representative. And again, in different companies, it may be different means. So I was responsible for keeping communication with this customer support. So we had different layers so first layer was the customer support, then us as the intermediate layer between the customer support and the team, engineering team, and we had to verify this bug, right? Make a decision which group of engineering it will go. It can be either content related, since we are working with the educational application, right? It may be content related or functional related issue. And then depending on that, we will address it to this or that team. Okay, good. And finally, example of black, gray, and white testing.
So white testing, it's unit testing, and usually performed by developers, not by member of QA team.
Good.
Black box testing, it's testing when we don't use any knowledge about internal architecture of our application.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's testing from the point of view the end user. And as an example, in our application, I can think about testing, creating the quiz functionality.
Mm-hmm.
And as for gray box testing, it's testing that is performed with using knowledge about internal structure, at least partial. For example, if I testing the application, I can click the link, and after it, I find that the link doesn't work, and I can see in the internal structure by inspecting my dev tools in the tab elements, I think, to try to understand possible reason why it's not working.
Right. So it may be a different faulty href, right? Or different structure of the element, right? So you definitely need to know how to deal with that. Maybe not only the link, but maybe the button, right? If you click on the button and it is not going to this page, and you inspect that, and if it is not the type submit, right, it will also takes the knowledge of the structure, right? Additional knowledge of HTML.
And we can inspect also probably network tab to understand if we sent a request or not.
Absolutely. So you definitely go to the network activity log, right? And you can review the response from the server, right? You remember that our DevTools allow us to see the response okay, right? Or 304 or 500, right? You definitely will be able to look into this activity log to see the URL for this request. You will be able to see the response status and response body. So, okay. What is another example of gray box
REST API.
in our application?
Is REST API the gray box?
Our statistics. Some statistics.
SQL? You mean database?
Right, absolutely. So when you verify, right, that some data is displayed correctly on your web page, right, and you use the SQL queries to validate that it is the correct number, then it is also an example of this gray box testing that requires specific knowledge and usage of specific tools.
And where goes the REST API? Is it gray or which testing?
Yes, of course. You also do it using some specific tools, and you use different requirements for that. Speaking about the API, we again touch this not only color of this testing, but different levels of the testing. Which test level does it belong to?
Integration testing, I assume.
Right, integration testing. unit testing, integration, system, and user acceptance. So API belongs to this integration when you combine different units together and see how they interoperate, and some of them may be not ready yet, right? So backend is ready, but frontend is not, and then you use this API, which is absolutely gray box testing.
Excuse me, Galina.
Yes.
Can I ask about the 2 questions ago? You say about user interface and API testing. Can I say that we can test UI, make UI testing with the API testing tool, like Charles Proxy?
I think that Charles Proxy is used for different purposes. I'm not familiar with that tool. I'm sorry. I cannot tell you about that tool. But Postman is used for working with testing of our application, bypassing the UI.
Galina, I have a question about API. So who usually perform API testing between the units of the application?
It can be developers, right? Or it can be a special group of QA who are working with this. Or if you have enough knowledge, and now you see that almost in every job posting, right? Knowledge of API testing, programming languages, writing scripts, using test automation tools are needed for every candidate. So guys, we give you the minimum knowledge so that you will be able to answer those questions during the interview. Okay? All right, guys. I think it is time to finish. So please combine those answers, and it will be useful if you put this onto paper, right? And share it with the rest of the team. And I'm extremely thankful to Michael, Camila, Nina, Sabrina, who actively participated in this. Okay? I think you will benefit from having this chance to speak up, and I encourage you guys to do it also, the rest of the team. So we will have one more session of interview questions during our last session on Friday. All right, thank you so much. So keep working on your individual tasks. Ping me if you need my help, and tomorrow at 5, as usual, I will throw the link for your questions, and we will look into your scenarios. Anna, I will assign you the task. I'm sorry about that. Okay, guys, good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Galina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.